so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be here. Transformation at the Core, episode number 2. I've put a lot of planning into this. I'm very excited to share with some awesome new news with you about the transformation of your brand experience, and hope that you will take something away from today that will help you do just that, transform your brand experience at the core of your business. Before we get started, though, I wanted to share something with you. This morning was an awesome morning. I slept in a little bit, got my meditation in, spent time with the kids, and even fit in a workout, which normally doesn't happen in the morning. So I got over to the gym and was on the bike, and normally in the morning I do a lot of reading. And so I'm reading articles on the customer experience, and I stumble across an article that, and I'm really ashamed to admit this, glaring me in the face that it is indeed this week, Customer Experience Week. And I had no idea. So apparently this is National Customer Experience Week, October 7th through October 11th. And I didn't have any clue. But when I started to scroll through the article and I was reading about it, which is pretty awesome, I discovered what the theme of the week was. And I thought, what an awesome theme. And that is this, that it's the magic of service, because that's essentially what we do. When we serve our customers, we are creating magical moments that could possibly turn into memories that they can take away with them, that make them feel really good. It can be magical moments when something goes right, but it can also be a magical moment when something goes wrong. As a trainer, as a consultant, as a keynote speaker, a lot of the moments I interact with folks, it's magical to me. But seeing that theme and the fact that it is, in fact, this week, Customer Service Week, made me remember this time. It was, I think, in June, and I was driving to a dealership. One of my partners, I call my clients partners. So I was driving to a dealership. Sun was shining, the music blaring. Yes, I do blare my music in my car. Sunroof completely open. I get there feeling good, step out of my car, take a big stretch because it's 2 hours away from where I am, and head into the dealership. Now, the first thing I do every single time I visit one of my partners is I do a walk around, because I like to know what's going on. I like to have a finger on the pulse. So this morning, this sunny, bright morning, was no different. And with a little bit of a hop in my step, a little skip in my step, I headed into the BDC office. And that is, for anybody who's not in automotive, the Business Development Center. So I headed into the BDC office, and we're greeted by these wonderful women with bright, smiling faces, and we caught up and we had great conversation. And then I asked the question I always ask, because I want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like, what is happening? So I asked, what are the struggles? What are the struggles since the last time I saw you? What are our opportunities? What do we need to work on? And for the first time in the 3 months that I've been working with the dealership, the smiles stayed on their face, and they talked about all of the progress they're seeing and about how the leaders are getting along better. They're holding themselves more accountable, and all the systems we're putting into place for the customer experience is really starting to take flight, and the customers are starting to notice. And then she said this, "It's like you have a magic wand, Katie. You have waved your magic wand over our dealership, and we've actually seen change." If it was a professional thing to do at that moment, I would have totally done a little happy dance, because I was doing that inside. But instead, I burst into the biggest smile I think I've had on my face in a really long time, and replied with this: I'm not magical, and I don't hold a magic wand, but you do. And all of you do. You all hold this magic within yourselves, within your organization, and within your team that allow you to create magical moments for your customers. Happy dances are professional. Thank you, Anthony. Maybe you might catch me when we're together next Wednesday doing a little happy dance. But I don't think it's going to be a very magical sight. But back to magic. And then I looked over at my desk when I got home. So I remembered this story. I quickly wrote a blog post about it because it's true. I'm not magical. I may have a few systems and processes that I can give to you that will help you, be better. But who is magical is you. That's who is going to take all this information and is going to put it into play. I see the back of my business card. So I own two businesses. One is my speaking business. The other is a training business. So Alchemy Group is my training business. And on the back of our cards, I'm going to put this up here, not all change is magic. The change itself is not caused by anything magical. It is always caused by the hard work and dedication and the magic that's within you that you put out there. So I want to share that story with you because it is Customer Experience Week, and I do believe you should always be focusing on the customer. They do keep the roof over your head and the meal on the table and the lights on in your organizations. And it should be something that you consistently focus on every single day. There should be a conversation about the customer happening every single day. And if you do that, if you talk about the customer, if you make all of your decisions with the customer in mind, everything will be magical because you will be focusing on the right things at the right time, making the right decisions, and it will all be with the focus of the customer. So go create some magic every day, not just this week, but this week, use it as a stepping stone into starting to talk about the customer every single day and talk about the magic that each one of you and each one of your employees has within them so that they know that they are empowered to use what they already have to create magic for their customers. Now on to today's show. I'm very excited about today's show because I'm going to talk about connecting in a digital age. Now, the last show, episode 1, we talked about the foundation of the customer experience and the importance of the customer experience, and that it's not just all fluff, right? We look at loyalty, we look at referrals, conversion rate, and our net new client or net new customer number. So the customer experience is all dialed back to KPI. So it's really important that you realize it isn't just fluff. Although it does take an immense amount of compassion and empathy, it takes an immense amount of emotional intelligence, it does actually drive top line. Now, in episode 2 today, we're going to talk about connecting in the digital age. Here I am connecting with you in the digital age through Facebook Live, which is fantastic. We can have a few conversations back and forth, but it's definitely not the same as if I were on a stage or working in a room with your team. And that is what I want to talk about for your customer. Personally, I absolutely love interacting with people in person, and your customers do too. So we're going to talk about emotion and shopping behavior and what the two have to do with each other and how you can use emotions to drive shopping behaviors and influence your customer's experience. Second, we're going to talk about the connection formula. So I have created this formula. It's Create Connection. And it helps team members actually be able to go through a step-by-step process on how they can create connection with the customer. Now, this is something I only ever give in keynotes, and I think I've written it maybe in 1 or 2 articles, and it will be in my book. So this is an exclusive for you, and if you're interested in the connection formula, you can reach out to me at katie@katiemares.com, and I am happy to send you a PDF of the connection formula. Now, third, we're going to talk about the big myth, the big excuse, and I will probably talk about this every single time I come on this show, and that is this. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time to create a connection. I don't have enough time to worry about emotion and shopping behaviors and how one drives the other. I've got a digital strategy to get behind. I have to make sure that my customer communication strategy is out there. My marketing, I've got to focus on bringing all these customers in. Well, guess what? Your digital strategy is going to do that for you. And yes, it is important. But today, customers are still not buying everything online, and they do crave connection. So they will come in and they want to either come in and interact with you in person, or they're going to pick up the phone. So customers are your priority. The relationships you create with them are also your priority. So we're going to talk about those three things, and let's get started. Okay, so emotions and shopping behavior. I absolutely love this topic. The reason why is because the digital experience is, emotionless. Sure, it might be able to, pique a bit of interest. It might be able to provoke through video and music a few emotions, but what it doesn't do is actually create that bond between a customer and a brand. And that bond between a customer and a brand is what keeps your customer loyal. So while the digital strategy you have and connecting digitally is extremely important, because it's a really great way to keep your customers interested while they're not interacting with you either on the phone or in person, or even via email. It is so important to realize that emotions actually drive shopping behavior. So I did a little bit of research on this before the show just to kind of give you some really awesome stats. So one stat that I found amazing is that actually customers will spend significantly more in person than they will online. So according to a recent First Insight report, 71% of all shoppers will actually spend $50 more in person than they will on an online transaction. Hear that, $50 more average spend in person than an online. Okay, second awesome stat here. So another survey, but done with a different group, so ClickTale, says that 40% of shoppers are actually use shopping as retail therapy, and they use this as a way to calm down. Now, also 74% of these respondents in the ClickTale survey says that they actually have stress shopped. Now, stress shop isn't happening on the internet. This is them going out looking for connections. This is them going out there wanting to have that human connection so that they can forget about their stressful day and keep themselves calm. In a lot of my keynotes, I talk about the first time you ever fell in love, and I ask you to remember the feelings of falling in love. I remember the first time I fell in love. I was in high school, and I was dating a hockey player. And I remember the feelings of anticipation and excitement, the butterflies in my stomach and the hairs on my arms standing on end because I was excited to see him, or I was anticipating him walking around the corner of the school hallways. I also remember the first time those three little words were ever said to me, and it was like fireworks. What you don't realize is the physiological feelings that you have when you're falling in love is actually the same physiological feelings that you're having while you're shopping. So dopamine gets released and serotonin gets released. And if you're lucky and you're creating a connection with your customers, then oxytocin is released, and that's the bonding hormone. So the same physiological reactions that you remember when you fall in love for the very first time is actually the same physiological reactions and hormonal reactions that your customers have when they do business with you. Consumers are much more likely to impulse shop when they're in a store, and they're much more likely to spend more because of the connection and the relationship and the experience that you provide. 67% of men and 77% of women will actually add onto a purchase in person versus online. That's crazy. 77% more will actually add this purchase on. So think about it. Think about for just a second how much time and energy you're putting into your digital strategy. Probably a lot. Now, it's super important. I'm not saying to abandon anything. But then think for a moment. And are you even putting a fraction of the amount of time you're putting into your digital strategy as you are into your in-person strategy? We are in a high-tech, low-touch, low ability to create connection era. It's all about what we can do online. And often organizations really start to trip up because they forget that there are still customers that want that human touch, and emotions drive their shopping behaviors. So do me a favor with this little bit of information, take a look, take an inventory of how much time you're spending on social media, on how much time you're spending on your website and perfecting, maybe you're introducing AI, which is all very important. But then compare it to the amount of time you're spending teaching your people how to treat the customers that walk through the door, because those are the ones that are ready to say yes. The only thing you have to do is create an experience and a connection with them. All right, emotions and shopping behavior, important, and take a look. Figure out that delivery gap. Take a look at the time spent on your digital strategy versus the time spent on your human strategy, and take a look at the deficit, because you still have humans serving humans. And as much as the robots and the technological age will drive and bring more customers in, it is your humans that are going to keep them to stay. They're going to keep them there. All right. Next topic here. Now, I told you I would tell you a little bit about my connection formula. So it's one thing for me to say, go and connect and create these emotions that are going to drive your customer shopping behavior. I should probably give you the how. How can you do this? So the connection formula actually came from a lot of research on the female consumer, which is actually what my book is about, and that will be launched in the end of summer, early fall 2020. I'm very excited, and I'll give you updates as we go. But the connection formula came from a lot of research on the physiological differences between men and women, and why she buys versus why he buys. Now, the one thing that I found that was very similar in both is that how we connect with, whether it's a man or a woman, is still the same sort of steps. We may tweak the messaging and we may say things a little differently, but there is a flow and a process that you can teach your team members to ease the pain of getting to know a stranger, or to take the time to be able to do just that. So here we go. So the connection formula, C, is for compassion and empathy. We want to, at all times, above all else, show compassion and empathy. Absolutely everybody has a story. If you didn't have something going on in your life that somebody didn't know about, I'd be very surprised. And knowing that you have that going on and I have that going on, that means all of your customers do and your employees do too. So at any turn, always, take a look at every situation through the lens of compassion and empathy. All right, the R. So I'm spelling out the word create connection. C is compassion and empathy. R is to reveal vulnerabilities. Now, I don't mean that you're going to tell everybody and air your dirty laundry and tell everybody your dirty secrets. But what I do mean about revealing vulnerabilities is that to be more human and to break down that wall. So if your customer is telling you that they've got something going on in their life, or that they missed an appointment because of whatever it may be, you've had that similar experience, then maybe saying, I actually had that experience a few weeks ago, a month ago, last year, and I totally understand what you're going through. Really, really important. I've actually had 2 instances in the last 6 months where I've been a client of somebody, a customer of somebody, and I have one of them, my therapist, which I wasn't able to show up at my appointment due to something that was happening with my family. Well, it was the last appointment I never made with this therapist, because she charged me for the appointment that I couldn't make. And App showed absolutely no compassion, no empathy, and definitely didn't reveal any vulnerabilities of like, I got it, I get you. Sometimes it happens. And also, most recently, another experience for me. I totally forgot to cancel an appointment, and the person showed up in my house. They were again going to charge me, and I was like, I've never done this to you. I had packed all my kids up and went to Great Wolf Lodge. It was my daughter's 6th birthday. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Is there anything we can do? Eventually, she said, you know what, I've been there. I get it, and your family and everything that we do with you is way more valuable than one appointment. And she did the right thing and kept me as a customer. So C, compassion and empathy, and R, reveal your vulnerabilities, become human. All right, E, you want to engage genuinely. Customers can spell it from a mile away when you're just putting on a front. So making sure that you're genuine in all of your interactions, extremely important. And if you don't feel like you can be, then find someone else who can be. It's really, really important. Your customers deserve to be interacted with and engaged with in a genuine manner. Okay, A is assure and validate. Questions are going to come up all the time. As I've mentioned, in this digital age, everybody's doing the research online, and even though we think we know everything, there's still going to be questions that maybe we think we should know the answer to, and we might feel embarrassed to talk about. Make sure your customers feel comfortable and you consistently assure and validate their questions, their concerns, and really anything that's going on in that interaction. We want to make sure we take our time, because time shows, when you give somebody time, it shows their priorities. So take your time in creating the relationship. There really is no rush. And the more you get to know your customer, the deeper they fall in love with you. So that emotions, right? Emotions driving shopping behavior. If they really feel that connection with you and they have that relationship with you, they are going to continuously shop with you, be loyal to you, and also refer you. I don't know if you remember the stat from last week, but I talked about emotionally engaged customers are 3 times more likely to recommend, 3 times more likely to purchase, far less price sensitive, and less likely to walk away. So it's really, really important that you engage your consumers and make sure you engage with them emotionally. And in order to do that, you sometimes do need to take your time. We'll talk more about that in just a little bit. And last but not least is evolve. Evolve the relationship. Now, just like technology is booming and evolving and constantly changing, this digital age I can barely keep up with, and I'm a millennial. It's crazy fast, and we are constantly on this hamster wheel. Well, with the change in technology and the change of life, your customer is also changing, and the relationship you have with them is going to change. I mean, think about your own relationships in your life, relationships with your kids, relationships with your spouse, your significant other, your parents, your siblings. They go through different seasons. They are constantly evolving and changing, and the same thing is happening with your customers. So it's so important, even though we're going to show every time we're with them, we're going to show compassion and empathy, and we're going to reveal vulnerabilities and engage genuinely. We're going to assure and validate and take the time to create the relationships. We need to make sure we don't stop there. We want to make sure that we're constantly evolving the relationship as the customer evolves. Extremely important. If you want to create magical moments that your customers feel something towards, so those emotions that are going to drive the shopping behaviors to say yes to purchase, yes to loyalty, yes to referrals, then you do have to evolve the relationship, and you have to make sure you create the connection, because human beings, especially in this digital age, we crave connection. Our only connection is this. I mean, we're constantly swiping and double clicking and looking at our apps to get a little bit of a feeling or a hit of dopamine so that we feel good about ourselves. Well, when they come into your location, they want to connect with you. They want that human interaction. And it is up to you to create that connection, to elevate the experience, to drive emotions, to help your customers fall in love with you. And if they fall in love with your brand, they're going to go nowhere else because they trust you. My last tip of today, and this is something I will talk about all the time. The biggest excuse I ever get in not creating a customer experience, whether it is the system you need to put in place or the consistency at which you need to do it or being able to train it, is this: there's not enough time. We make time for things that are a priority to us. It is the world's biggest excuse. Think about it. How many times today have you told yourself or your team members or a customer, or even thought about it while you're with a customer, that you just don't have time? I don't have time to do this. Try telling them, yourself, all the things that you don't get done, your team members, that they're not a priority. Because essentially, that's what you're saying. Switch the language. You're not a priority right now. I actually was on with a marketing group, and I think I said it about 4 times in our conversation. Now, these ladies are helping me get everything together. They're doing my content calendar, and they're asking me questions. And instead of lying and saying I didn't have enough time, because I had time, I just chose to do other things. I said, and I'm not joking, 4 or 5 times, that it just wasn't a priority. It's so important that you realize that your time is precious. And like I said, I am so excited for anybody that has joined me tonight or watches the replay, because you are making your learning, your self-development for your customers, your team, or even if you're a solopreneur for yourself, you're making that a priority and you're spending your time with me to learn. It's so important. Time equals priority, and you make time for things that are priority. So switch that excuse. Get rid of that excuse. It is okay not to have all the time in the world to do absolutely everything, because that's one thing that we all have the same, is 24 hours in a day. But instead of making the excuse that you didn't get it done because you didn't have enough time, or you don't have enough time to interact and create relationships with your customers, try saying it isn't a priority. It's a really hard pill to swallow if you sat there and said, well, I don't have enough time to spend half an hour with my customer, or I don't have enough time to do the follow-up or create, we're going to talk a lot about plus ones, but to do the plus one, to go above and beyond. I didn't have enough time. Well, essentially what you're saying is it wasn't a priority, and you need to start making it one. All right, I don't want to keep you too long. I want to keep this show short and condensed because I value your time. But we had a lot of lessons today. So first of all, connecting in this digital age is so important. And I don't mean connecting via text or on a Facebook Live. I do mean that you need to know how to connect with the humans that walk through your door or pick up the phone and want to interact with you. Take a look at the amount of time you spend on your digital strategy versus your human strategy. How much time deficit is there between the two of them? Which one is your priority? Number 2, I want you to make sure that you know that emotions actually drive shopping behavior. And the only way you're creating any emotional effect or engagement with your customers is if you actually engage with them and create a connection. So making sure that you really realize, this stat was crazy to me, that 71% of all shoppers who answered this survey, the First Insight report, said that they spend $50 more on average when shopping in-store versus online. There's some money to be made, and there's money left at the table if we're not creating those experiences and connecting and creating magical moments. It is in your best interest to engage emotionally with your customers so that you can drive their shopping behavior. And last Oh, not last, the connection formula, how we all make this come to life. How could I forget? So we want to make sure we show compassion and empathy, and we reveal vulnerabilities, and we engage genuinely, and we assure and validate everything the customer says and needs, and we take our time and realize that it is a priority to create those relationships, but we don't stop there. We continuously evolve the relationship. You want to connect, create connection with your customer. And lastly, making sure that the big excuses that come up in your head, or the big excuse, the number one excuse of time, not being enough time, is that you start looking at that difference and that sort of delta between time and priority. And I challenge you to change your language, to flip that script and start using priority. It wasn't a priority versus I just didn't have enough time, because we have time for things that are a priority. Now, something new, I'm going to ask you, anybody who watches this, anybody who's on right now or watches the replay, I want you to actually write in the comments what you want to learn, because as much as I have a whole 6 months worth of content that I'm going to put out there, I want to make sure that I'm teaching you what you want to learn. So please drop a comment in the bottom of this post so that you can tell me what you want to learn and I can do a show on it. And a big announcement, I'm going to have my first guest next week. So next Wednesday, I'm going to have my first guest on my show. I'm very, very excited. We're going to be talking to my dear friend, Anthony, and actually he's in Toronto, so we're going to be doing this show side by side. So I'm very, very excited. And we're going to talk about everything about sales and customer experience. And as an awesome trainer, he is an amazing trainer. He's going to share his insights, and I'm going to get a little bit of information out of him. It's going to be learning for me, so I'm very excited. So make sure that you drop what you want to learn in the comment box, and you tune in. Set your calendars to tune in next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. You are the magic in your customers' worlds. You create the magic, and you're the only one that holds that magic wand. So make sure that you empower yourself and empower your team. Make magic a priority, and make it a priority to create those connections. I will see you next week at Transformation at the Core next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Have an awesome evening, everyone.